Hello, welcome to the James Cooley Show. It's your life. I'm your host, Dr. James J.C. Cooley. And wow, say it again. Wow, we got an absolutely fantastic show coming your way today. Um, I am totally touched from this young man's story that we're going to talk about, and I think you will be as well. So I think everybody needs to sit back, get you about 8, 9 bags of popcorn, have an open heart, pay attention because we got something coming your way. And I'm not going to give it away quite right now because I know my executive producer uh, and also co-host will probably beat me up if I gave away the title, if I gave away anything right now. So, welcome to the show, Dr. Michelle Cooley. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great, James. Yes, thank you for not giving away the title. We have we have an amazing show. We have an amazing show. We have this gentleman on the show who's going to share his story about trials, tribulations, but then faith, a second chance, and giving back. So talking to him and just reading a couple of things. That's how I would phrase it. But we're gonna give him the seat, the platform to tell his story and how he is giving back based on what he went through.
Well, let me give you a quick synopsis. Many times in life, especially when we're young, we find ourselves making mistakes. And sometimes we continue to follow that path and take on more, follow that path, make mistakes, do bad things that could potentially land us in trouble. Now, I tell you, this young man went through all of those things, and once he started telling his story, I know each and every last one of you are going to be interested and also want to get to know this young man. So whichever platform that you're watching us from, what you're watching from, E360 Television, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, over 55 live other platforms. Welcome to the show. If you want to be part of the conversation, all you have to do is just go to the comments where you're watching the show at. And I promise you, we'll get your answer. Michelle, I am ready to get this show started. So can you please tell our viewers, our listeners, the title of the show, purpose of the show, and introduce this absolutely wonderful guest that we got.
Yes. Well, the title of today's show is Meet Travis May. And we're having a sit down. He's a speaker, he's a mentor, and he's going to talk about his backstory, his life, and the resulting consequences regarding actions that led to the most, I guess, pivotal time in his life, one of the most pivotal times, and advice to parents experiencing troubles with their children or loved ones. So let's talk a little bit about Travis May today. Travis May is one of the most powerful agents for change in the justice system of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Whether he's speaking to judges, lawmakers, lawyers, prisoners, or at-risk youth, Travis is able to connect with his audience in a way that creates an instant bond and an unforgettable impression. He has held many roles and positions such as Virginia Department of Corrections Speakers Bureau, preferred speaker for Virginia Supreme Court Judges School, bill passage with the General Assembly of Virginia, SB 108, representing the perspective of extended solitary confinement. And he's got many more to share with the audience. So please welcome to our show, Mr. Travis May.
How you doing, Travis? How you doing,
How
my
y'all
friend?
doing today? Dr. James and Dr. Michelle, it's a pleasure to be on the show and have an opportunity to share God's blessing with the rest of the world.
Wow. I'm so happy to have you on the show, and I'm looking forward to you sharing your story with many, many people around the world. So, first of all, can you tell our viewers and listeners a little bit about you, where you from, where you was raised, and then we're gonna get heavy off into this story.
Absolutely. Yes. Again, my name is Travis May. I was born and raised in Norfolk, Virginia. Uh, my mother, Jocelyn Maria May, had me. She was a single mother. My father, Travis Baker, shortly became incarcerated after having a relationship with my mother. they were in the streets and ended up going on a run. And it was in that particular time frame that I was created. And unfortunately, he had to go to prison for the crimes that he had committed. And my mother was left to raise me by herself with the occasional help of my grandparents and my aunts. And I grew up like any other child, you know, with hopes and visions and desires just to be great and to follow my imaginations wherever it took me.
Wow. So your father, if I heard you correctly, went to prison, and you end up following his footsteps along the way, but unintentionally, not that that's what your desires are, you know. So
Yes.
I always ask this question right here, just to give our audience an opportunity to know who you are. If you had to pick one word out an adjective to describe who you are today
Oof.
and why, what would that be?
Grateful. 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 Oof.
Can you elaborate on why?
Yes, I can't elaborate too much because it'll give away too much of the story, but the essence of my existence at this moment in time has nothing but gratitude tethered to it. I'm grateful every moment that I look around and I see the life that I am now living. I'm grateful upon my reflections of the lives and the struggles that I endured. And I'm grateful for the people that are still in my life and the people that I have now met and have become a part of a greater mission than what I expected. And more so than that, I'm grateful that I served 25 years in prison and I have a full, powerful, beautiful, and God-driven mind. And the greatest of things is my newborn son, you know. So that has me sitting on a high of gratitude.
Wow. That's,
Yes, sir.
hey, well, I want to get off into the, can you give our audience maybe 30, 40 seconds, and I'm going to show
Yes.
a clip of the beginning. You know, so can you tell our audience what you went to prison for and why?
Yes, I went to prison for 5 armed robberies, 2 attempted robberies, a malicious wounding, and several uses of a firearm. I was young and I decided that my life no longer mattered, and my actions reflected that belief.
So I tell you what, I want to show this story,
Yes.
and then we're gonna come back. We're gonna go dive deep off into this. So here we
Yes,
go.
Yes, sir. I come from circumstances of powerlessness, hopelessness, unworthiness. But with this gun, I got power.
He show up at the house, car full of gangsters. He get out and tell me they have been doing some armed robberies and the police were after them and that I have some money so he could get away.
So when I heard that he had been locked up, I was grateful because he was alive.
I panicked. We have to get the best attorney money can buy. We have to get him out of this.
Never would I have expected another human being to impose a sentence of that magnitude on a kid.
The attorney immediately said, "Your Honor, what part of that sentence are you suspending?" And the judge very matter-of-factly said, "None."
The judge said over his dead body, he was gonna be in there till the day he died.
I don't think there are words that could describe the hopelessness that somebody would have under those circumstances. What do you have to live for?
Okay, if they're not going to give me my freedom, then I'm going to take it.
Then we rushed him in the cell, and then that's when we tied him up. We not trying to hurt you. We just want to get away. We got too much time, and I remember saying this over and over again. We see him see us, and he says, "Oh shit!" And then he hit his walkie-talkie. And when he hit his walkie-talkie, officers came running out of all the buildings. The sergeant that seen us is yelling to the yard tower to shoot us. My thinking at this time, okay, I'm about to die. And I'm thinking this as they beating me down on the ground and totally surrendered. Like, okay, I done tried everything. And now I tried to escape and I ain't make it. I'm free.
Wow. Wow. So powerful. Travis, let's pick it up from here.
Yes.
So let's go into the beginning of your story. Yeah, you mentioned 5 robberies and all of these things. Can you go into this and explain what was you thinking when you was doing these things? Did you think it was okay and just got used to it? Let our viewers and our listeners hear the whole story. Let's do it.
Okay. First of all, I did not come into the world desiring to do armed robberies or to be in the streets at all. I came into the world believing in the fact that I had a lot to offer, that I wanted to be a heart surgeon. You know, I would go to the library and read books on the heart so I could understand the functions of the heart. I wanted to be an NFL running back. I would go to the library and get books on refereeing.
Travis, hold that thought. Man, I was so mesmerized in that story that I almost forgot that we got to take a station break. I told you to grab your 8-9 bags of popcorn, get ready. And this is so powerful. And if you got young adults, kids that might be veering the wrong way, get them in front of your TV screen. Get them in front of this, because this man is getting ready to bring it. So if you want to be part of the conversation, whichever platform that you're watching this on, all you have to do is go to that platform, ask any question that you might have, and I promise you, I give you my word, that's all I got. We'll get you an answer. It's your life. We'll see you shortly after the break.
I never wanna leave. Yeah, I'm right where I wanna be. We got something you and me, and I can't get rid of this feeling. Just like a magnet, we're just like a magnet. The things we have can't be taken for granted. Now I know that it has always been you. I can't help it, I'm so drawn to you. Just like a magnet, we're just like a magnet. The things we have can't be taken for granted. I know that it has always been you. I can't help it, I'm so drawn to you. Hey, I'm so drawn to you. I'm so drawn to you.
Really get a chance to know who you are. And once you know who you are, you truly know who you are, love who you are. Love who you are. You're a masterpiece. Love who you are. Love who you were born to be. Love me some me. That's what I'm talking about. When you leave high school, you gotta know today or tomorrow, hopefully today, what your plans are. Hopefully, there is no bad decision unless there is no plan. Create, collaborate, commit with confidence. Commit with what? Commit with what? In everything that you do.
I've seen a smile convey I love you. I'm proud of who you are, and one that keeps us close when we're apart. Talking from the darkness of all that we've been through, it seems that there might be a behind the loneliness we've known and live again life of
Hello, welcome back to James Cooley Show. It's your life, and wow, that last story that we were talking about, just like I mentioned, I was off into that. I almost forgot about the break. We got to pay the bills, So I can't forget about that one. But I'm just excited to have this young man on the show today, sharing his story, and it's an eye opener. And I want to pick it up from there. Travis, you was explaining the beginning, how a lot of these things develop
Right.
and how it affected you. Yeah, so can you pick that up again?
Yes, sir. As I said, I had a lot going on within me, a lot of hopes, a lot of dreams, and a lot of desires. But what I didn't have was the capabilities to understand what was going on around me. And what I mean by that is at this particular time that I'm with my mother, and we would occasionally be visited by my grandparents and my aunts and other family members showing support. We moved into a community where my mother absorbed herself in the fabric of that community. And it was a community of survival and excitement. And from an early age, my mother was a very exciting personality. Everybody in the neighborhood came to know her. She had a reputation of a woman that would go hard like a man, meaning she would fight men. My mother was selling drugs. She was young herself, and she got pulled into her environment and then started to get fueled off her environment. And I did not know how to process these things that I was bearing witness to. I just know that they brought me excitement as well. And oftentimes my mother would have me with her whenever she was doing what she was doing to help us survive. Whether it was selling drugs, whether it was stealing or boosting or whatever the case may be, it was something that became natural to me at an early age. It wasn't frowned upon by my community, and it wasn't frowned upon by my mother and her boyfriend. So it was no reason for me to see it as something other than the thing to do. The only time I would run into conflict with the way that I was when I would spend time with my grandparents, because my grandparents were church-going individuals. They were very faithful in the church, and their faith did not transfer over to my faith because I did not know how to make faith practical in my life. So I served what was before me, and it was the excitement of my surroundings, and pretty soon it became very clear that my mother was married to the streets and distracted by trying to make sure that we survived. And my grandparents started to figure out that me and now my sister, because my mother had other children at this time, were not in a healthy place for a child to be. So they came together and decided to take me and my sister away from my mother. Now, I was 7 years old at this time. For 7 years, I knew this life. I had enjoyed this life, and I had grown conditioned to the excitement that was the streets through the lens of my mother. Once my grandparents took me, the courts agreed that the living environment with my mother was not a healthy or a safe one, because she had also became addicted to crack and then heroin. and she was shooting heroin. And when she started to get taken over by that drug, that's when life was never the same. So we went to go stay with my grandparents, and I did not know at that time I was dealing with depression as a 7-year-old, because the person that I loved the most was taken away from me, or I was taken away from her. And then I was being told by other people that I loved that this person wasn't good for me. And all I wanted to do was protect her, because I could not understand. I felt like she was going through the same pain that I was, being that I couldn't be with her. So it started to create a divide between me and the other people in my life that loved me, because I felt like I was being done wrong and my mother was being done wrong. And so I knew how to survive. So as I got into my grandparents' household, I knew how to go to school, be respectful, because these were the requirements of this environment. I also went to church. I knew how to go to Bible study and all of that. But what I desired most was my mother. So I would find my ways out into the neighborhood around my grandmother's, and I had a knack for finding the same type of individuals that were around me and my mother when I stayed with her. And this was a familiar to me. I felt comfortable being around those type of individuals. So I started to lie and figure out ways to get out of the house and spend more time where I felt more comfortable. And this is where life started to accelerate, because my uncle at this time, my father's in prison, and his brother became this kingpin drug dealer who was running the neighborhood drugs. And my grandmother knew it, everybody knew it, and they just accepted it. And he was seen as a high figure. So now this is the male role model that I connect to first, because he just seemed to have it all figured out. He was driving all the fancy cars and trucks, and he had all the respect of the neighborhood. And me being his nephew, I would benefit from people knowing that I was Carrie's little nephew, So this started to allow me to identify with trying to make myself like him. And it got me accepted by older individuals in the neighborhood. And a very pivotal moment in my life was when I met my best friend, Maurice. He was older than me, but he had been in the streets most of his whole life. And he didn't have a father figure, anything like that. So he made his survival and his character and his reality from the streets. And he took a liking to me, took me under his wing, and gave me all the bylaws of the streets. So now I'm operating, feeling like a man, even though I'm only 14 and 15 years old at this time. So as I'm staying with Maurice, I no longer have communication with my family, because I'm living an exciting life every day. I get to carry a gun. I get to be out all times of the night, and I'm making money. I feel empowered in my life.
Feel empowered in your
Yes.
life. So, Travis, when was the first time that you committed one of these crimes? How old were you, or armed robbery, or whatever that was?
I was 16 years old. It was 1.5 weeks after I found out that my best friend Maurice had just been killed doing a robbery of his own. And instantly, when I heard this news, it made me identify with the reality that this is the guy that taught me. If he was killed, then it's inevitable that this will be my likely outcome as well. So instead of waiting on that to happen, let me run towards it so I can have a sense of control over it. And I started to mirror the same behaviors that Maurice was doing, which was committing armed robberies. And one armed robbery gave us so much excitement and adrenaline and fear all mixed in one, that it was unlike anything we had ever experienced before. Like, we were used to just standing out on the corner and selling drugs in the neighborhood. We hadn't engaged in that type of behavior. you hear other people engaging in that type of behavior, but it was like living in a movie. You know, the sense of power and control that we thought we had by committing those type of acts gave us a false sense of being indestructible almost.
So gave you false sense. When did it become addicted?
Yes, sir. It became addictive after the third robbery, because the first two, it was more fear driven, because you didn't want to get caught. You were scared. You didn't know if somebody was going to buck or what the case may be. Would we have to shoot someone, because we knew that this possibility existed and we were willing to make that next transition over to violence. And the third robbery, it seemed like it went so well and we was all just excited and we were splitting the money, and none of us felt the fear that we felt from the previous two. And then it became more of, okay, what is the next job we're going to do? And the excitement of planning the next job started to overtake us, and it took our thinking. Like, it took full possession of our thinking. I know it took possession of my thinking. That's all I thought about all day, all night. What is the next robbery I'm going to do? And the power that I felt I had when it came to what I had to offer in life. My friends felt safe around me because I was able to show an attitude of not caring at all, because I had already accepted that my life was going to be short like Maurice. And so I was moving with that type of motivation. So in their eyes, I was like a safe person to do crimes with. So even though I was the youngest, they were looking up to me because I cared the least. And this behavior started to feed me beyond what I could understand. You know, I would not leave my house. I would not go to sleep without a gun, because I knew what we were doing. I knew what our other friends were doing, and I didn't want to be a victim of what I was doing to others. And I felt like this gun was my protector from ever having to experience that.
When did you know, or did you think that these consequences, that what you were doing was going to lead to the consequences that it led to? We got about a minute and a half before the break, and then we're going to come back and really dive off into this.
Well, I never really believed that I would deal with the consequences that I ended up dealing with. I truly believed that I would be killed before I would ever see a jail or a prison cell. So I never factored in jail or prison. I always factored in my piece of being willing to die when the moment came.
Wow. Hold that thought.
Yes, sir.
This is exciting. And this is so, and I appreciate your honesty.
Yes,
and you
sir.
sharing it. We're going to take a station break. We're going to come back and we're going to dive even deeper into Travis thinking and what he was going through. And we're going to talk about some of the consequences that came out of that. So if you want to be part of this conversation, all you have to do is go to the platform that you own. Ask any question that you might have. I promise you, we'll get you an answer. It's your life. And we'll be back shortly after the break. Dr. James J.C. Cooley from the United States of America, and I am here to just say, first of all, I'm so happy and honored to be on it, to be in the Coffee Book 2023, Unified Brain Z, and the other organizations. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this collection. Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life. I'm your host, Dr. James J.C. Cooley. Travis, I am just amazed with your honesty and that you're sharing your story with potentially millions and millions of folks. And I'm also hoping that we have folks out there that's committing crimes or thinking about going through crimes, that there are consequences in everything that we do. And so please listen to this young man right here. And we're going to pick it back up there. If you want to be part of this conversation, whichever platform that you're watching us on, or you would just ask any questions that you might have, and I promise you we'll get you an answer. Travis, last question I asked you was, when did you know that there were consequences? And I think you mentioned that you did not think there was, at the time you weren't thinking about that. So can you tell our listeners and viewers what happened to you, I'm talking about the fifth time or whatever that was, where you got caught, and what happened? And I want to show part 2 of the video.
Okay.
But I want you to get it started.
Yes, sir. Fortunately for me, my belief did not come true. And as you said, the consequence came to bear down upon me. After about 3 months of these crime sprees, if you will, I found myself sitting in Virginia Beach Police Precinct, being told that I'm being charged with several armed robberies and a malicious wounding and several uses of a firearm. And these charges were serious enough that they were going to seek me being certified, meaning I would be prosecuted as an adult, even though I was a child. So I had always been taught to take responsibility. If you get caught, take responsibility, own yours. And so I had no idea that I would be sitting in a reality that I was sitting in, meaning prison. So now that this is the reality, let's go ahead and get it. Let's go ahead and do it. What do I need to do to take responsibility for myself? And I did what I needed to do, meaning I went to trial. I listened to everything that my attorney told me. He said, listen, these charges are serious. Every last one of them carries a life sentence. Plus, you're looking at life plus 75 years. All we can do is ask for the mercy of the court. You plead guilty and we avoid you receiving any life sentences. So my plea bargain was to plead guilty of the crimes that I committed, not to be sentenced to a life sentence. and to receive a term of year sentence. And this allowed my attorney to argue before the court for a lighter sentence, which was 33 years. The least amount of time that I could receive was 33 years in the state penitentiary. The prosecution asked for 75 years because they felt like the charges were that serious and demanded that type of punishment. My lawyer also made the court very aware of the fact that any time that I received, whether it was 75, 33, or whatever the judge deemed fit, I would be serving all of that time, because Virginia at that time had a working 3 strikes law, meaning that if your crimes weren't considered a part of a common act, then they would be broken up into strikes. So being that I had 5 armed robberies, that means I had 3 or more strikes. So I would be treated as a 3 striker. So I had no chance at parole with good behavior, anything like that. After making the court aware of that, the court took a recess. The judge came back, and my attorney gave the description that I was young and influenced by guns and people with guns, and I didn't have strong role models to pull me away from that. The prosecution just looked at it like every time that we went into one of these establishments, the potential for loss of life was there, and that's what needed to be focused in on. So when the judge came back, he agreed with both attorneys. He said, Mr. May, I believe you were influenced by guns, and you were influenced by a lot of people that had guns. But I also agree with what the prosecution said, that every time y'all went into one of these places, the potential for a loss of life was there. So I'm going to sentence you the way I see fit. And my lawyer was writing down all the time as the judge was saying it. But once the judge got to 75 years, I couldn't continue to add what my lawyer was writing down. I was able to add up to the 75, but now I'm starting to lose track of these numbers. And when the judge finished, I had a 155-year sentence in the state penitentiary with no chance of parole. All I could do was hear the screams of my family in the background crying, and my attorney trying to calm me and tell me, listen, I'll be back in the bullpen to talk to you. I can't believe this just happened. Oh my God, I can't believe this just happened. And I remember just being numb. I could not compute or process what this meant to my life.
Hold that thought.
Yes.
Now I want to play part 2. And then we're going to come back and talk about this some more. Here we go.
His world was going to change again, because once you escape, you know, they put you in segregation and they forget about you.
It had a toilet, it had a desk, and it had a cot. And all of those things were in this one little space. That represented my tomb. How was I able to figure out how to make my life worse? When I had people in my life that were always telling me, man, if you don't tighten up, you're gonna end up in jail or dead. And I wanted to understand, why in the world did they not penetrate my thinking? And then it came to me, it was like God blessed me with a small insight for a second.
He was facing over 200 years and in solitary confinement, and he found a way to see something positive in that and want to make a difference in not only his own life, but other people's lives, knowing that he wasn't going to probably get out of prison.
So one day I went up there and watched him speak. And when I saw the speech that he gave and the encouragement and the tears in the other prisoners' eyes, I knew. I said, he's a different person. He's a great man.
I knew I had a false sense of respect in the prison system because I tried to escape. So guys were trying to give me all of this respect, and I was taking that respect off the table. Don't respect me. I gave up. The only way to take a gun out of a child's hand is to be back present with the child in their being, not allowing the behavior to ever overshadow the worth of the child.
I just see it as a divine intervention, I guess, if you will, and just looking at the lives that he's touched, just my life personally, the kids that he's worked with, the judges that he's spoken to, and how their eyes have been opened to the possibilities of reform. And I mean, just look at all of the good that's come from him. To think of him not being here and still being in solitary confinement, we'd have to think of all of that being gone, never existing.
Respect the man that's taking responsibility for the space he's standing in. And he's trying to put together a different work, a different effect to his life. Respect that man. That's who I am now. You matter. You beautiful, and life is worth living.
Travis,
Yes, sir.
we're gonna take a station break on that one right there, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna pick it up. We're gonna talk about this some more. If you want to be part of the conversation, all you have to do just go to the platform that you're on. Ask any questions that you might have. I promise you, we'll get you an answer. It's your life, and we'll see you shortly after the break. Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, and wow, a video tells it all. The last one that we just saw, because it shows that regardless of whatever situation, circumstances that you're in, even when there seem like it might not be a way, and once you understand, you change the mindset. I believe it's you change your heart. You change your purpose, even though this man knew he was never getting out of prison. He changed his mindset, he changed his heart, he changed everything and start helping others. And we get ready to talk about that one right now. You know, so hey Travis.
Yes, sir.
So over 200 years sentence plus. And what was you thinking when when it really hit you and you're like, okay, I'm stuck here. I know you tried to escape.
Right.
I think you did escape, I think.
Yeah, it was attempted escape. Yes.
Yes. And once you was caught, when did you have a change? And okay, I'm gonna do good. I'm gonna be the best me that I can be. Can you tell us a little bit about that moment And what was the first good act that you did, and then you caught on to it and locked into it, and you continue to do that?
Indeed. Well, before the escape, I never really accepted the reality that I would die in prison, because I allowed myself to become distracted by the things in prison to keep me from taking responsibility for the life that I had produced up until that point. And it was until I received a letter from my lawyer telling me that my last appeal had been exhausted and there was nothing else that could be done in my case that true hopelessness set in. And that's when I formulated the idea to escape, because I felt at that time to breathe one moment of free air would be greater than just waiting to die in prison. And if I died in the process of trying to breathe this free air, I was free. And if I made it, then I was free. Because my definition of freedom at that point was anything on the other side of those prison gates. Because I went in at 16 and I felt like I was born in there. 7 years had passed before I tried to escape. And I had lost the woman who tried to fill the holes of my mother, who was my grandmother. No, she had passed, and I could not go to her funeral because I was a security risk because I had too much time. And so it was just the perfect storm to not care anymore and to almost hope for death in the process of the escape. So to answer your question, the moment that they caught me and took me down off of that fence, and I realized that I have exhausted all of my appeals, and now I tried to escape and I didn't make it, a sense of freedom and the weight just lifted off of me. It was like, oh, well, I didn't try everything now. And it's amazing, James, that up until that point, it was almost like I was when I was a child on the streets committing the crimes that I was committing, thinking that the only consequence that I would have to face would be death. The same thing was in my thinking when I tried to escape, meaning I'm going to die tonight. So it doesn't matter. I'm going to be free any way you look at it. So the fact that they had me down on the ground and they were cuffing me and beating me, and now I'm about to go into a whole nother reality and consequence that I didn't even factor in, put me in a world that I had no reference for. So now that I tried to escape, I have become an escape risk, and I'm headed off to a super maximum prison to be my final resting place. And I still was looking for ways to escape within that segregation cell. I started to formulate the belief that if I killed an officer, then they would have to put me on death row, and then this pain and suffering that I'm feeling would be over. So I was still not ready to take ownership of the mess that I had produced in my life. My transitional and pivotal moment came when I knew I was going to have to face the people that still supported me, my family, and tell them that all the times on them 20-minute phone calls or those 1-hour visits or those letters that I wrote, that I was faking, that I was in pain and I was suffering, and I wanted them to believe that I was okay, that I was getting educated and I was doing good and I was just waiting to come home when my chance came. I was going to have to face those same people I lied to, because now not only was I not who I was representing, I was way worse than who I was before I went in.
Wow. So you were worse than. So when did the change? We only got about 7 minutes left in the show. When did the change come where you just say, hey, I got to change my life. I must accept my reality. And now I want to help others. Maybe I can live vicariously through them. Can you talk about that one? Oh,
the change came. I remember the day the change came. It was specific. My intercom went off and it said, inmate May, get dressed, you got a visit. And now I'm 8 hours away from my homeland, and anybody that came to visit me was only going to receive a 1 hour visit behind the glass. So that meant whoever came up there drove 8 hours one way for a 1 hour visit behind the glass and was going to have to drive 8 hours back, a 16-hour turnaround. And I was mad. I was not appreciative that somebody took that time out to come see me. I wanted to tell them never to do it again. So when I went to the visitation room, I went with that type of energy and frustration. And it was my stepmother. And this was a woman that I rejected every step of the way because I did not know how to make space for her in my heart and not betray my birth mother when she was in my life as a child. But she supported me throughout my prison sentence. And when I went in the room, she said, "Hello, son, how you doing?" And I remember saying, "Mom, what's wrong with you? Why would you come all the way up here to visit me for 1 hour behind the glass for a 16-hour turnaround?" And I remember her telling me, "Boy, sit down and stop disrespecting me. I don't care where you are on God's green earth. If I can come there to give you love, I'm going to do it. This relationship is more than me giving to you. I get something from being in your presence." And it was at that moment, I didn't understand what was going on, but I felt something pressing on me that I had never felt before a day in my life. And I tried to figure out what it was. And it was the responsibility that I had to the relationships and love in my life.
So that was the turning point right there. And for the sake of time, when did you start working with others? And I want to know about when the point came where you had judges, you had lawyers, you had everybody, you had sheriffs, you had everybody coming to you for advice. Got 2 minutes. Let's hear it.
The minute that I realized that I had value, that I had been feeding a falsehood that I didn't matter. The minute that I accepted that I mattered, it all became clear. Why did I not listen? As I said in the video. And then I started to look around me and see that the individuals that had the same life that I had, they were suffering the same way that I was suffering, despite the fact that they might have had less time than me, that they were going home. They had the chance that I wanted. And instead of judging them, I wanted to connect them to that second chance, that rebirthing. And the only way that I could do that was to sit present with them in heart and to see their worth and not see their behavior. And that's when my words were able to start penetrating their minds and then their hearts. And then I started to have an influence in the prison. And next thing I know, people were asking me, when was I going home? And I was like, oh, I ain't never going home. You know, I'm in here forever. And from that moment in motivation, God revealed my purpose in life was to sit present with his children, see their worth, and feed that. One heart at a time.
When did the judges, everybody start coming to you? We got like 2 minutes, a little bit more than 2 minutes. Start coming to you, and when did you get notified that the stuff that you were doing, and the governor said, "I got to reward that man"?
I got to say this: I would not be sitting here as well if it wasn't for the motivation of my family. I was on the phone. My aunt, I got out of segregation. I'm doing good, all the good work around the prison. My aunt asked me, "What are you going to do about your situation?" And I laughed at her. And I was like, "What do you mean? Not only do I have 165 years, I have also brought another 55 years for my attempted escape. I have 220 years. There's nothing I can do." And I remember her saying, "Don't you ever call here again telling us to believe beyond our circumstances because you're not willing to do it yourself." So I filed for a pardon and a commuted sentence, and I released it to God. I wanted to walk the walk of my talk for my family. And a year later, I come back from work, I open up the kiosk, I see I had one piece of mail. When I read it, it was 3 sentences I'll never forget. It said, "Is your name Travis Hassan May? If so, congratulations. The governor gave you a pardon today. I'm a reporter with the Virginia Pilot. Please call me ASAP." And that started a multitude of overflow blessings because the conditions of my pardon was to complete Virginia's reentry and then to go out and be a man. Just go out and be responsible for your space. And right after getting out, all I wanted to do was come back in to let the guys know that no matter what your circumstances look like, it can never speak to the purpose of your heart and your worth. And that opened up the opportunity to speak to judges, and then for a documentary to be made about my life and / movie to help other people that no situation is hopeless, that no child is hopeless.
Wow. You know what? You are incredible, my friend. We have to do a part 2. We have to do a part 2 because there's so much more that we need to reach out to the world and let them know. So I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today. We're certainly going to have you back again. I'd like to thank Dr. Michelle Coley for putting together another absolutely wonderful show. But most importantly, I'd like to thank you, our listeners, our viewers, for tuning in to the James Cooley Show. It's Your Life, a Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Always remember to dream big, think big, and be big at everything that you do. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. It's your life.